Hello, BookTube. Matthew over at Mayberry Book Club and I have been transforming his channel name into a reality. We've been making a little book club of our own, just the five of us. Him and me and my adorable little dog and his two pony-sized cats. We've been reading one book a month and having fun, usually, unless the book disappoints. And this month we're doing our second graphic novel, our second Batman graphic novel. We started out with Batman Dark Knight Returns, which was brought out in 4 parts, so it fit a month-long format just perfectly. But it did not please Matthew, and it didn't please a lot of you who were reading along with it, and I noticed a lot more of its flaws. Every time I read it, I notice more of its flaws. It's iconic, and it always will be, but that doesn't mean it has to be great. So I felt like I owed Matthew a Batman graphic novel that didn't disappoint. And that's what we've been doing this month. I'm happy to see that it has not disappointed. We're reading Batman Year One, written by Frank Miller, with art by David Mazzucchelli. Batman Dark Knight Returns was written by Frank Miller, but drawn by Frank Miller as well. Here, it's different artwork. And it deals not with the end of Batman's career, but with the very beginning, the first year that he put on the cape and cowl and fought crime in Gotham City. And as Matthew points out in his video, his video ringing down the curtain on this graphic novel, it hasn't been all that great at first year. Batman has mostly failed, and he's taken a huge amount of physical damage, been clubbed and shot and whatnot. But he has come closer and closer to the method that he needs. He says in the first issue that he has all the means, he just needs a method. He needs something to bring it all together. And the core of that method will be that criminals are a cowardly, superstitious lot, and that he can frighten them. He can become an urban legend that fights crime in Gotham City. But gradually, over the course of the issues that we've been reading, it has become clear to Batman, to Bruce Wayne, that in addition to that method, he also needs a practical element. He needs to be allied with some of the power structures in Gotham City. Otherwise, he will be steamrollered by them right along with anybody else. And in the first few issues, it seems like he's found an ally in Harvey Dent, an upstanding and crusading district attorney, to the point where, at one point, when Jim Gordon, the new police lieutenant in the Gotham City Police Department, who is upright and honest and ethical, with one major exception that we'll be getting to, confronts Harvey Dent in his office, Gordon insinuates that maybe Dent, who keeps himself in very good physical shape, might be Batman. And Dent laughs it off, but as Gordon is leaving, we see that Batman is actually crouching down behind the desk, that they know each other, and are at least tentatively working together. That element is never really brought forward in Batman Year One. More specifically, as it becomes clear as the issues go on that Bruce Wayne is going to try to make Jim Gordon his ally. I need Jim Gordon, is what he says. As that becomes more and more clear, you start to wonder, well, why do you need Gordon if you've got the district attorney of Gotham City? Why isn't that good enough? I guess the reason would be that he needs someone to turn around the Gotham City Police Department, which I guess would be a tacit admission that given the amount of crime and corruption in Gotham City, Batman alone can't do the job. The police have to be more right-thinking. They have to be basically on the same page. And that brings us to the 4th and final issue in this miniseries, where we have seen Batman escape by the skin of his teeth from an assault by a police SWAT team. And we've also seen Jim Gordon commit an ethical lapse, cheat on his wife. Jim Gordon has a pregnant wife, but he also has a detective on his squad, Detective Essen, who is very pretty and very forceful and very, very much willing to suborn another man's marriage vows. Ought to be a deal breaker, but apparently it's not. And they meet at Edward Hopper's Nighthawks Cafe, and they are awful cool and hep together. This is a symptom of something that goes on in everything that Frank Miller ever wrote, and we'll be getting to it. But in this issue, all of that comes to a head. Because in addition to making an enemy of the corrupt Gotham City Police Department, Batman has also made an enemy out of the organized crime gang that runs Gotham City. And unbeknownst to him, he has also inspired Selina Kyle, a young woman, to leave her life as a low-rent prostitute, because God knows she couldn't have been anything else, and become a costumed vigilante herself, Catwoman. That is a rewriting of continuity, as a great deal of Batman Year One is. That is a rewriting of continuity. In continuity, Catwoman is a villain. She is a supervillain who steals extremely expensive, high-profile jewelry, and gains her moral ambiguity and maybe her fan favorite status only the more she starts to like helping Batman. And now I believe in DC continuity, Catwoman is simply a hero. Simply does the right thing for the right reason. Doesn't maybe there's a little bit of fun and games have had now and then that maybe if you're not looking, she's a hero who will save you from the supervillain, but she might pick your pocket at the same time. In the original conception of Catwoman, that wasn't true. She was just a bad guy. But one way or another, Selina Kyle has been inspired by the rumors of Batman to fight crime herself, including this organized crime family. And Batman thinks she's just getting in the way. She's an amateur. She's likely to get herself and maybe even him killed. But the main point of Batman's antagonism of this organized crime family is that they have had enough and decide to strike at all the forces. They can't reach Batman. They don't know who he is. But they know who Jim Gordon is. And in this fourth issue, they decide to attack him through his family, to kidnap his wife and baby. Because, as one character says in this issue, once a man is married, he is no longer free. Those of you who might be wondering what Frank Miller is like in his real life, we can leave that up to speculation. The whole time that those plans are formulating, Lieutenant Jim Gordon is still trying to figure out who Batman is. He wants to figure this mess out, and one of his primary candidates all along has been billionaire Bruce Wayne. Billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne arrived in Gotham City after a long hiatus outside of the city at around the same time that the Batman started appearing. Batman appears to have access to lots of equipment. It makes sense that he would be wealthy and have a secret base of operations. And at one point in this fourth issue that we're looking at, Jim Gordon takes his wife, because they're having trust issues, he takes his wife to Wayne Manor to interview Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne is very much playing the brainless... I lost the screen. We'll go all the way back to it. I cannot get the background noise to stop on this channel, and I cannot get a tablet to behave. Simply cannot do it. I put armor on these things. 6 inches of rubber and plastic armor, simply so that I can hold the screen up to the camera without it shifting all the way to the first verse of the first book of Genesis. And nothing works, so you'll have to bear with me. This is the scene I'm talking about, where Bruce Wayne is still in his bathrobe in the middle of the day. He's got the slippers on. He's got a woman cuddled up next to him, and he's drinking what appears to be champagne. And he tells Jim Gordon, "Excuse me, it must be the champagne. I've neglected to introduce my friend. You see, I'm not sure of her name, and she doesn't speak any language I know." The Gordons interview him. They want to know where he was on certain dates and times that might that might mean he is Batman. But then they drive off. He said, his wife says, "He's a pig, Jim." And Gordon says, "He's acting like one, that's for sure. But any man who'd put on a cape, it's a cape, not wings, I've seen it. Anybody who'd wear a cape and hunt criminals might go pretty far to keep his secrets." And then he stops. They're still in the driveway of Wayne Manor. He stops and says, "We have to have a talk," because Gordon realizes that he's blackmailable. The chief of police has already tried to blackmail him. He realizes he's blackmailable when it comes to the affair that he's having with Detective Essen. So he decides to pull over and talk to his wife about that affair. And the car is in the driveway. Bruce Wayne is watching them. As Alfred says, "I gather the remaining bottle of club soda may be left in the proper container." Bruce Wayne says 10 minutes he's been out there. Now he's moving. Good. Alfred, how did you like my performance? Notice something that's missing? You would have to notice it because I guarantee you that Frank Miller did not. You notice something that's missing from that scene? You want to get down, baby? Go on. There you go. The young woman is missing from that scene. It's not, no length of time has passed from the moment when Gordon gets up, concludes the interview, presumably with Bruce Wayne still sitting there on the couch with her. Then Wayne moves over to the window. Gordon is still in the driveway. No time has passed at all, but she's gone. Is she still in the room? To hear Alfred and Bruce Wayne say that that was all an act, that it's club soda, not champagne? And maybe to testify to that fact? No, she was needed for the effect in that one panel. And when she's not needed anymore, she vanishes, not just from the scene, but from Frank Miller's mind. And once Jim Gordon tells his wife about the affair that he's been having, she is able to take the next extortion phone call and say, yes, sir, I know about Sergeant Essen. Please don't bother me again. And Jim Gordon is watching when she does that. Look at this panel. That is Frank Miller telling David Mazzucchelli, I want you to make Mrs. Gordon as plain as possible. I want her to be the most plain-looking individual imaginable. Quite a far cry from here. Let me show you the compare and contrast, because it just makes it funnier. Quite a contrast from Sergeant Essen. And that is the kind of baked-in sexism that I was talking about. Not only that Selina Kyle is a prostitute, that's the life that she is living when she decides to do something more than herself. And not only that that Gordon is, in the course of the story, not particularly reprimanded by the narrative or by the narrator. By Frank Miller, in other words. He's not particularly reprimanded for cheating on his wife with Sergeant Essen, because she's beautiful. Not only is all of that true, but his wife, his ball and chain, looks like a Carmelite nun. One way or another, you just have to expect that. In a Frank Miller story, you pretty much have to expect that. In Frank Miller's writing, women are alien beings. They can sometimes converge just a bit to somewhat look or act human, but they are mainly alien beings. They are mainly meant to test, threaten, or underscore the mettle of his male heroes. Maybe you could say that's Miller playing to a demographic. Maybe in the 1980s he knew perfectly well what is still true today, which is that comics are mostly bought by men, mostly read by men. Maybe he was catering to that. I don't think so. I don't think Frank Miller needed to cater to anybody. I think this is just part of his own storytelling. But one way or another, things come to a head when organized crime abducts Gordon's baby. Look at that horrifying scene right there. Bruce Wayne has already figured this out. He's already figured out this is going to happen. It's during the day. It's a daring daylight abduction of Gordon's baby. So Bruce Wayne is not dressed as Batman. He's just a guy with a helmet on. And Gordon, he fires on the men who are abducting his son. He fires on them, and they think he's crazy to do that, and he is crazy to do that. He could easily hit his wife or his baby. But when he sees this other guy on a motorcycle with a helmet, he just shoots him and grabs the motorcycle. Unbeknownst to him, he is shooting Bruce Wayne, who is there to help him, and who tells his wife, I won't let your son die, and takes off after them on a bicycle. Commandeers a bicycle. And we get a thrilling scene on a metal bridge in Gotham. When a car crashes, Gordon is confronted by a thug carrying his baby. And we see Bruce Wayne in shadow leaping up to the trellis works there in order to gain momentum, in order to gain the bird's eye view. The baby falls. Look at this beautiful paneling here. The baby falls. And the upper part of the panel is Bruce Wayne diving. Now, let alone, let's leave aside the fact that Galileo proved that's not how falling objects work. Leave it aside. This is comic book physics. Gordon screams. Look at that great panel. He screams no because there's nothing he can do. From his vantage point, he can't yet see the man diving from the top of the bridge. He just thinks he has failed to save his son's life. And then we get this last panel here. Gordon falls with the thug, and Bruce Wayne has the baby. All done without motion lines, without any kind of narrative. That is just so fantastic. I would argue, heresy that it is, that is better visuals than Frank Miller would have done rendering this exact same scene. And what we get is the thug is unconscious, and a man is standing in front of Jim Gordon and hands him his baby. The baby is just fine. And Gordon says, well, you know, without my glasses, I'm blind. And that is Frank Miller fundamentally respecting the intelligence of his readers. It is a very adult moment. It is a very novelistic moment. We understand from that moment that Gordon knows perfectly well who is standing right in front of him, handing him his baby. That Gordon knows perfectly well that Batman is Bruce Wayne. That is Frank Miller's understated, in fact, never stated, explanation for all that follows from the Batman mythos. That the only way any of it is possible is if Gordon knows. Gordon has to know for any of it to work. For the Gotham City Police Department to refrain from hunting Batman as a wanted vigilante. Gordon has to know. And to prove they have to be not only allies, but friends. And that's exactly how the series ends. Gordon is waiting on the rooftop. There's some real panic on. Somebody's threatened to poison the Gotham reservoir. Calls himself the Joker. I've got a friend coming who might be able to help. Should be here any minute. And that friend, of course, is Batman. So they are now established the partnership that will last them through the whole of the Batman mythos. And you could easily imagine what that mythos would be if Frank Miller had simply written it from this start and it had never varied from that. It would never have gone cosmic. I doubt there would ever have been a Robin. Instead, it would have stayed adult. It would have stayed local. It would have stayed gritty and noirish. And it wouldn't have had things like Killer Croc or anything like that. It would have been much more the Batman of Frank Miller's youth, the Batman of Batman and Detective Comics, who faced puzzles and crimes in dark alleys, gangsters, lots and lots of gangsters, but who wasn't this Justice League type larger than life figure. If Batman had gone on like this, that's what it would have been like. And sometimes I think I would like to have read those issues. And then I remember that I did read those issues. There's a huge backlog of Batman and Detective Comics in which that's exactly what it's like. Lots of dark shadows. Batman is entirely human. He can be wounded. He can be wrong. But he is courageous, and he is sharper than anybody else in the room. And it works out just fine. And in a lot of those early stories, most of those early stories, there is no Police Commissioner Gordon. The Batman's relationship with the police is just assumed to be one of amicable professional cooperation. It's because they have the same enemies. But one way or another, that is Batman Year One. And I believe I have recouped my street cred with Matthew when it comes to graphic novels. I'm going to put that to the test later on in our Mayberry Book Club. I will suggest another graphic novel. I haven't quite decided yet what it will be, but we'll see. I'll put it to the test. I think I know what I want it to be, but I'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, that wraps up Batman Year One, a very, very good graphic novel, including for people who, like Matthew, are beginners. Matthew is not steeped in comic book lore like I am. And I've often used Batman Year One as an entry point for people along exactly those lines, so I'm glad it worked. So that's it for the July Mayberry Book Club. I think you can all guess what the August Mayberry Book Club will be, but we'll make announcement videos in due time. So that's it. That's Batman Year One. I'm going to wrap this up. Feel free to let me know what you thought, especially if you read Batman Year One for the first time along with us. I would love to hear the impressions that it made. But one way or another, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.